Hey everybody, welcome back. And today we're talking about if your plan is to get your time back, why hiring an assistant designer is probably not going to work out the way you expected. And I want to start there because this is one of the most common assumptions I see interior designers make when they are stretched too thin, especially in my coaching practice. They get on the overwhelm and they go, "Oh, Katie, I need to hire an assistant designer." I get it. You're overwhelmed. You're behind and your plate is full. And you think the answer must be another one of you. And it feels so logical in the moment. But in so many cases, hiring an assistant designer is not actually going to solve the problem that you were actually trying to solve, because there is not another you. The issue is not always that you need more design support. It's often that your business is too dependent on you in too many ways. The business, not the design part. So today, I want to talk about the difference between task support and decision ownership, and why designers so often hire too early, or you're hiring the wrong role first, and why a bookkeeper, a social media manager, an administrative assistant, a project manager, a procurement specialist, any of those need to happen before you bring on a designer. Let's talk about the real reason why you feel maxed out. Because when you are the bottleneck in your business, any help starts to look like the right help. And this is where it gets really, really tricky, because you are so deep in the day-to-day that you start assuming that the problem is volume. It makes complete sense, right? Too many projects, too many selections, too many presentations, too many design work hours. But for a lot of firm owners, I want you to hear me. This is not actually where the pressure is coming from. See, you're not just designing. You're answering the emails, you're following up with the vendors, you're managing the timelines and organizing the files and tracking the invoices. And then like at 11 at night, you're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't post on socials today," right? While you're busy solving procurement issues and fielding client communication. Yeah, it all feels like a lot. And then you have to approve every detail and keep the entire business running all in your head. So let's press pause a minute. When you hire an assistant designer, what often happens? You still hold the client. You still hold the timeline. You are still in charge of the decisions. You're still holding the operations. You're still holding the emotional labor, and you're still holding the follow through. Doesn't sound like it's doing its job, right? Yeah. Now you just also have someone to train, manage, and review on top of still holding everything. And that is why that hire can feel so disappointing, not only to you, but also to them. Because you thought you were going to buy back time, but what you actually bought was more like moving parts around in the same bottleneck. This is a really important distinction that I want to talk about, and it's task support versus decision ownership. And that distinction changes everything. Task support, let's start there. It means someone can help execute work that has already been decided. So that includes sourcing, updated drawings, pulling together presentations. Maybe it's organizing those selections or inputting specifications, helping prepare for installs, supporting your design development. That is useful, very, very useful. But task support is not the same thing as capacity, because decision ownership is what actually creates that capacity. See, decision ownership means someone can carry part of the business forward without bringing every single question back to you. So that might look like owning a workflow. Maybe it's managing the communications within a defined lane, or tracking timelines and next steps. Perhaps it's following up with the vendors, or handling purchasing details, or catching issues before they even hit your desk. That's my personal favorite. Maybe it's making lower level decisions inside a clear process. One person helps you do more. The other helps the business require less of you. And if your goal is to get your time back, don't you want the second one a lot more? All right. I see you, and I see a lot of you hiring assistant designers too early because you're reacting. You are tired. I see you. You are behind. You are dropping balls, and you know I cannot keep going like this. So what happens? You hire the person that seems closest to the work because they're surrounded by it, right? And that often means another designer because, gosh darn it, that's what's taking the majority of your time. So let's bring on another one of those. But I want to be really careful here. Overwhelm does not automatically tell you what role you need. I'm going to say that again. Overwhelm does not automatically tell you what role you need. Rather, it's just telling you, hey, something here is really broken. And if you do not stop to diagnose where that true bottleneck is, you can easily hire for symptom relief instead of structural relief. And that is where I see designers getting stuck. If your real problem is admin drag and project coordination, procurement overload, inconsistent marketing, maybe your finances are a mess, then an assistant designer, I'm here to tell you folks, and you can probably hear it in my voice, they're not going to solve the issue for you. Not at all. In fact, let's talk about the purpose of a first hire, because that first hire should reduce drag in your business. It should not increase complexity. That is the filter. The real purpose of this hire, this first hire, is not simply to help you produce more work. It's about removing the friction in the business so you can operate at a higher level. So what does that actually mean? What's actionable there? It means your first hire should usually take work off your plate that does not require your highest value thinking. Work that does not require your creative vision or your direct leadership. And in many firms, here's the punchline. That means your first hire is usually not an assistant designer at all. It is rather going to be someone who makes the business function better. Whether you are an interior designer or you're in medical sales, it doesn't matter. You need to have a better run business. So what does that actually look like? Let's start talking about it. A bookkeeper may actually be your first hire. A bookkeeper is not exciting. Don't get me wrong. No offense to the bookkeepers if you're listening, but they are often one of the smartest early hires you can make, because when your finances are messy, everything in your business feels heavier. And if you are in charge of reconciling the transactions, tracking the expenses, wondering where the cash is going, maybe you're chasing all the invoices and avoiding your numbers altogether, guess what? You're spending energy in a place that does not require the very thing that has made you great, your design expertise, right? And you are still making business decisions without clarity. Now, here's what a good bookkeeper does. They're going to keep your clean financial records. They're going to understand your cash flow. They're going to stay current on expenses and invoicing. They're going to reduce tax season panic because we're right there right now, right? They're going to see whether the business is actually profitable. That sounds like a pretty nice deal to me. In fact, this was the first person in our firm that we hired was finances. And even though I have my master's in business administration and could do them, I didn't want to. It's not my happy place. This isn't what allowed me to grow a company. So why does this matter that you hire a bookkeeper before an assistant designer? Because if your numbers are unclear, adding payroll pressure can create even more stress. And that bookkeeper is going to give you that visibility first. And that visibility makes every future hire smarter. Okay, another position you want to hire before you hire an assistant designer is a social media manager. A lot of you do not realize how much time and mental bandwidth marketing is stealing from you. And I know because I saw the swings in my firm about when I had time, when I didn't have time. How does this all work? Until someone came on full-time and was in charge of it. And by full-time, I mean full-time from my mental load, not 40 hours a week. I didn't have to bring them on as an employee. They're still contractors to this day. And it helps immensely. Even if you are not posting every day, the fact that social media is just sitting there in the background is a mental load for you. You know you need to stay visible. You know you need to share projects. You need to market your expertise. You know you need content and you need consistency. And if all of that is living on your plate, yeah, it's going to suck your energy like a shop vac. Because a social media manager can help. They can organize and plan the content. They can repurpose your ideas and your project photos. They're going to create consistency in your marketing and keep your brand visible. And it's freeing you from the constant pressure of posting. Okay, now you're probably saying to me, okay, Katie, that's great. Why should I hire this role before I hire an assistant designer role? Because if your pipeline depends on visibility and marketing disappears, every time projects get busy, guess what's going to happen? Your business stays stuck in inconsistency. A social media manager can support your growth on the front end in a way an assistant designer usually cannot. All right, a third role I want to give to you that you should hire before you hire that assistant designer. And this is one of the most underestimated hires in a growing design firm. It's an administrative assistant. Because if your days are full of little things like emails and scheduling, file organization, follow-ups, onboarding tasks, maybe it's calendar changes, sending those documents, expense sorting, all of those tiny interruptions are likely the exact reason why you cannot think clearly. Because those little tasks are not actually little. They fracture your focus all day long. You need someone who can come in and do the inbox support, schedule and do calendars, file organize for you, help with onboarding, task tracking, keeping details from piling up. This is what they do. One of my all-time favorite admin assistants is Donna on the series Suits. I absolutely adore that woman. You need to find yourself a Donna who can come in and do this for you. And why does this come before an assistant designer? Because admin work is usually lower value work sitting on the plate of the highest value person, you. That's a really bad trade. No one would agree to that when I say it like that. So an admin assistant may not look glamorous, but they can be one of the fastest ways to reduce daily overwhelm. All right, I'm going to give you another position you need to hire. Here we go. If every project is living inside your head, it might be your bottleneck and a reason why you should hire a project manager before you hire an assistant designer. Because a lot of firm owners think they need more help producing the work, when what they really need is help moving the work. Because delays do not usually happen because someone did not pick the right fabric. They happen because, as you know, someone didn't follow up, someone missed a deadline, someone forgot to communicate the next step, someone failed to catch an issue early. And all of this, friends, is called project management. And a great project manager can track all those timelines, coordinate moving parts, unstuck what's stuck, communicate with the clients and vendors, surface those problems early before they ever reach you, ideally, and for sure not the client. They can reduce the number of daily details that come back to you. And you're probably saying, okay, Katie, tell me more. Because if every update, issue, and next step still is running through you and your firm, the business is not lacking design help. It's lacking coordination. And that's where this project manager helps the business actually move. And that creates more capacity than another designer ever could at this stage of your business. Okay, let's talk about why a procurement specialist may then be the fifth person you hire before you still have yet to hire an assistant designer. Procurement is one of the biggest hidden time drains in your firm. It is detailed. It is deadline sensitive. It is full of follow-up. There are orders, lead times, damages, replacements, freight issues, vendor questions, tracking, receiving. Anybody else tired yet? Yeah, it all takes time and attention. And if you are still personally carrying procurement, it can eat up an incredible amount of operational bandwidth. By bringing on a procurement specialist, you can get help with placing and tracking orders, coordinating vendor communication, managing damages and replacements, keeping your records accurate, even following timelines and reducing expensive mistakes. They often pay for themselves. So why should I tell you to go hire this person first? Because procurement is often where time, money, and stress leak all at the same time. Before you hire someone to help create more design work, think really hard about someone who can support the delivery of the work you have already created. Okay, now that we've chiseled through all of my you should hires before you hire an assistant designer, you're probably like, okay, Katie, do I ever get to hire an assistant designer? Yes, you do, when it actually makes sense. I am not anti-assistant designer at all. There is absolutely a place for that role in an organization. They can be an incredible hire when the design side of the business is actually and truly the bottleneck. and when the business around the design work is already structured enough to support them. In fact, in our firm, we had already hired a number of these positions in the process I just worked through with you in this episode before we brought in someone to do this. Because you cannot hire them until your processes are clear, the roles are defined, your operations are supported, your projects are moving, your admin is not sitting on you, your procurement is not a mess, your marketing is not fully dependent on you, and your financials are clean enough to actually support the growth of bringing this person on board. And at that point, I wish I had a bell to ring, because now an assistant designer is stepping into structure, not chaos. And that is what makes that role actually powerful, because the assistant designer is there to support a machine that already works. They are not there to build a machine from scratch. That's the business side. That's everything we just talked about. So if you're sitting here and you're like, okay, Katie, that was a lot. I feel like I drank out of a fire hydrant today. How do I know what I really need next? Before you hire anyone, I want you to stop asking, who can help me? Bad question. Instead, I want you to ask these. These are the smart CEO, not business owner questions. What work is stealing my capacity? What part of the business creates the most daily interruptions for me? What am I doing that does not require my expertise? Where are mistakes or delays costing the company money? What decisions could someone else own with a clear process? And this one, is my real bottleneck design or everything around design? That last question is the one most CEOs avoid, but it is actually the one that tells the truth. Is my real bottleneck design or everything around design? Sit with that for a minute. It may not be comfortable. Here's the bottom line, folks. If your plan to get your time back is hiring an assistant designer, you're probably going to be disappointed. I'm going to tell you right now. Not because design support is bad, not because hiring is wrong, but because task support alone does not create freedom. Because if you're still carrying the finances, the admin, the marketing, the timelines, all that procurement, the client communication, and the decision making on top of all of that, then the problem is not just that you need another designer. The problem is that your business still depends on you too much. And until that changes, no hire will fully give you your time back. The first hire is one of the ones that removes the most pressure from that actual bottleneck. Now, the order I provided those in isn't necessarily the order you need to use for your firm. Sometimes it is a bookkeeper, but sometimes it may be a social media manager or an administrative assistant or that project manager or that procurement specialist. And only then, when the business has enough structure to hold support well, does an assistant designer become the lift you were actually hoping for in the first place. If this episode hits a nerve with you, it is probably because you are not just overworked, you may be misstructured. And that is exactly the kind of thing I help interior designers figure out. If you're still trying to decide who your next hire should actually be, where your capacity is leaking, or why that growth still feels so gosh darn heavy, even though you were doing everything, I want you to book a problem-solving call with me. Let's sit and see if we can do business together. And we will look at what your business actually need next, what role will actually create the leverage you're looking for, and how to build a firm that supports growth without requiring more of you, and more importantly, more of you holding it all together. Because the goal is not just to hire. It is to build a business that can hold more without costing you everything. If this resonates, head over to fixmydesignbiz.com. Again, that's fixmydesignbiz with a Z.com, and book a free call with me. I'd love to sit with you and hear where you're at, what you're struggling with in your business, and how we can move forward together in creating a business that works for you, not you working for it. Until next time, take care.